This meeting is being recorded.
So in the last class, have seen like how to access the data in form to database. Okay, so from form to controller. And also we have seen how to call sobject fields in Lightning component. We have used the account object, contact object, and another custom object called patients object. And we have seen how to view the sobject data in Lightning controller. So for that, we have implemented in the Lightning component side, Lightning input we have implemented. And whatever the user has entered the data, how to capture those data for the sobject field. So that we have seen in the Lightning controller. And also we have seen layout items. So default size is 12. So we have created the different multiple rows we have created, and we use the account, contact, and another custom object to display the data in each layout, each row. So this is what we have seen yesterday. Today, we'll talk about today's session is very important. We are going to cover it, collection. Like in Salesforce Apex side, we have a list set, map collections are there, right? So today in Lightning, we'll see array, which is called as a map, list, set. How to use these collections in Lightning component. So we'll go ahead and see this information. Let me open my developer console. New Lightning component. LC_1404. And today topic is collection. Okay. So every time we have to repeat few common certain pieces, like we have to write again and again every day, like lightning card, lightning button, because these are the default for right now for every demo, every day, whatever we are discussing the scenarios. So a couple of things we have to write every day. So right now, let me declare the Aura attribute. Okay, so the first thing is that I wanted to declare the attribute, array attribute. So let's give the name. I wanted to capture the information, employee age. Okay, so I wanted to capture employee age. So this is my name and type. So far we have seen integer, double, decimal, Boolean. If it is a sobject, we use the type sobject name. If it is a standard object like account, contact, opportunity, then we have to write those names here. If it is a custom object name, then we have to write a custom object API name, like patient__C. But right now we are planning to create an array here. So my array type is, let's use the integer array. Integer and array. So this is my array and default value. So for the default value array, let's use some numbers 50, 40, 60, 90. This is an array attribute I have created. let's create two other attributes for list and set. So another attribute name, let's use it as a city. Okay, and this type is list, and the default values are I can give any city name here, Hyderabad. Bangalore. Mumbai. Delhi. Okay. If you observe here, the list, usually in the upper side, in order to declare the list, we give list of string, right? Or list of or we will give list of integer. So what are the data type that I want? We declare inside the list. But in the Lightning component, Aura, just we need to declare list, because by default, everything it will be considered as a string. So list always will have a string values in the Aura. Okay, let's take another attribute, which is this is for set. Let's take a place. Okay, set. So set also in Apex side, how we declare it? Set string or set integer, whatever the data type we want, we declare it inside the set. But here for set, it is automatically take care of as a string. Places, I can write any place. For now, I'll take KPHP. Come on. Dilshuk Nagar. Secunderabad. And then Koti. So let's take these details. Okay, right now I have three attributes. One is array and list and set. For list and set, by default, whatever we give, this attribute will consider as a string. Okay. And yesterday we have seen the layout, right? So let's use that layout, lightning column layout. So inside the layout, I'll be having a layout item. Okay, so the first layout item, let's give the size. Let's give it as a 4. And let's add a padding around small. This we have seen yesterday. Okay. Now, so I have a attributes here, array list set is there, and I have a default values. Okay. So if I print this, employee age, it is going to print all these values, right? So it will be printing as 50, 40, 60, 90. So let's declare in the Apex side how we do it. So list string A equal to new list of string, and let's declare the default values. Let's use it as this. Okay. Now this is my list. Now if I have to print, so if I directly print system dot debug list values, it displaying everything in one row, but each one is a one value, right? Each one is a one value. So if I wanted to display first Hyderabad, then in next line Bangalore, then in next line Mumbai, in next line Delhi. So if I have to print in that way, multiple ways I can do it. I can do for loop, string, okay, and I can print each value in the for loop. And if I execute it, why it is taking everything in one line?
Place. That's only about you need to keep this place.
Sorry?
In the for loop, you need to place this place now.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So right now I see Hyderabad, Bangalore, Mumbai, Delhi. So everything is one value and it is printing one by one. So in Apex, we use the for loop, or we can use A of 0 value or A of the second value. Like this, I can pass the integer inside the list and I can print it. So there are different ways we can do. So let's take it as a for loop. So for loop is the standard way which we can use it. So this is in the Apex. Same thing if I have to implement in the Lightning Aura. We have a command called AuraEnabled. Just a second. Okay, sorry. So we have a Aura iteration in Lightning Aura, which is similar to the for loop in Apex. Okay, in Aura iteration, I have a attribute called items. So here inside the for loop, you will declare a string and you will give one attribute name, and then you will pass the list, whatever the list is there, that you will pass it. So I have to pass this list value to the for loop, right? So here for the Aura iteration also I need to pass the list, or I need to pass the set, or I need to pass the array. So in order to pass that particular attribute named here, I have to use items. So items equal to, let's take it as a v dot employee age. Okay. And I need to initialize a variable, or I need to declare it. So here we are passing it and we are declaring one variable. And inside for loop, we'll use the variable that is declared in the for loop. So same thing, I have to use it here. I'm passing my array here. I need to declare a variable. So in order to declare a variable, I have to use var equal to, let's take a or age. Okay. Now let's print the values here. I'll put paragraph because if I directly print age, it will come in one line. So in order to break that, I'll just use paragraph, or you can use the break. So this is to print the values line by line. Let's see how it displays. Let's use it in the application. I'll close all other my component. Copy this name. Okay, let's use this. C colon component name, close it, and comment the above one. Preview. See displaying, right? Okay, it displaying 50, 40, everything in one line. Let me use the break here. Let me take another layout. Right now I have a size 4444. Here I have to use the multiple rows equal to true. (23) lightning layout. Okay. So I have written the Aura outside of the lightning layout. It should be inside of this. Let me try. Okay, so 50, 40, 60, 90. Okay, size is 4. And if I add another layout, I have a list and set. So let me use two other layouts for the city. Pass the variable. And let's use multiple. In Aura, it does not show the commands like in Visual Force. Whenever we are trying to enter the keywords or anything, it auto displays the keys, right? So here it does not show sometimes. Now let's refresh. So each row 50 Hyderabad, I have a 4 values here. 50 Hyderabad, Secunderabad, 40 Bangalore, Dilshuk 60 Mumbai, Koti, 90 Delhi, KPHP. So Aura iteration, for example, if I have a different values that I wanted to print using the S object, same thing we have to use it, Aura iteration, but make sure passing the right attribute here. And what are the attribute we use it here? We can display that. We do not need a break here. If I remove the break, it prints step by step. So there is no space between that. Okay. So we have given a size 4, 4, 4. So still 4 is left. So total size is 12. See here, there is a lot of space we can see. Okay, this is all about how to use the collection in Lightning Aura. Is it clear?
Yeah, clear.
Now next we will see about Lightning Object Controller. Lightning Object Controller, also called as a server-side controller. Okay, before we go to the server-side controller, let's understand what is server-side controller, what is client-side controller. Let's open the paint. Okay. Any programming logic that lies in the server side, which is called as a force.com. This is the force.com platform. Let's assume that this is a force.com platform. Okay. So force.com, like if I'm using a Salesforce org, for example, I'm working for US company or I'm working for Singapore company. Okay. Actual Salesforce that sits in their Singapore place or Dubai or the US, whatever the Salesforce I'm using for, it is basically they have created the Salesforce using that particular country. Okay. So I'm opening their Salesforce in my system. Okay. So for example, I have my local laptop or local iPad or mobile or local network. My client is somewhere. Okay, I'm sitting in Hyderabad and I'm opening their Salesforce here. So we can say it as a local network. Okay, which can be your laptop or mobile or iPad, anything which you can think. So this is my local network. And force.com is, it sits in US or Singapore that I'm trying to access. Okay, in local network, I'm trying to open my Chrome or Mozilla browser. Whatever the browser I have it, I'll open that browser. So this is a browser. I'm opening the browser. Okay. In browser, I'll open login.salesforce.com. This is my login.salesforce.com. As soon as I enter user ID password, it will cross verify based on the authentication. Then it will open my Salesforce. Okay. Now I have access to their system, their organization, their Salesforce organization. So I'm able to open the Salesforce. Now inside this Salesforce, I have implemented a Lightning application. Okay. So I'll open the Lightning application. So this is my Lightning application. As soon as I open the Lightning application, what it does, whatever the component that sits in the Lightning application, it opens up the Lightning component. Right? So this is my Lightning component. Once Lightning application calls the Lightning component, inside the Lightning component, whatever the attribute it has. So for example, there is a Lightning component that has a height, width, which we have seen the example. And there is a result here. Okay. So far I am into my local system. Okay. Only the connection went back is when I logged into the salesforce.com. That time it went to the force.com and cross verified whether my authentication is there or not. Now I'm working on a Lightning application, Lightning component. So user has entered some values. In the user had enter some values of height and width. So whenever user enters the information, okay, and click on a button, what will happen is here, let's assume that the logic is sum, height and width, sum I'm doing, or multiplication I'm doing it. So there is a button here. Okay, as soon as I click on this, it will pass the details to the force.com. So that means on the here on the Lightning application, when I click on a action, it calls a server side control. So server side controller is nothing but force.com, where we'll have the logic here. We'll have the logic. It can be any logic. It can be any logic. So in case if my Lightning application calls the server side, it passes the information to the force.com. And based on the logic that we have, then it returns back the request. So request I'm sending it, and based on the business logic, the response comes to the Lightning application. And based on the response, whether it is successful or failure, it displays the result here. So this is the request and this is the response that I'm getting. So basically, this is called as a server-side controller. 10 years back, 10 or 20 years back, server side is very critical, which is a major thing, because that time we were not having the iPad or nothing was there. So that time, whatever we have to implement, it has to be done in the server side controller. Now the situation is everybody is using the Lightning. And everybody has an iPad, there is a connection, the logic has written the client side and they wanted to execute it. So 20 years back, the server side was very critical. Everybody was using the server side controller and all the logic, it used to be run in the server side. Now, as we are growing and we are using the Lightning, and what we have done is we started using the client side controller. What is the server side controller does? Based on the request, whoever is requested, based on the request, it will process the logic. Process the logic and it returns back the response. Okay. So let's assume that right now I'm using their Salesforce in my system. Okay. It is taking a lot of time to get the response. Though it is a height and width, there is a lot of traffic in the force.com. Everybody is calling this force.com. So there is a lot of traffic there. So even for small result also, I'm getting the response very late. So when we started using the Lightning component, everybody used to call the server side controller. Everybody used to call the server side controller. Then later they realized that the response that is coming is, it's taking a lot of delay in that. Just calling the Apex class performance is like it's taking a lot of performance. Then they started using the client side controller. They started using the client side. So we divided the logic. In client side also we can write the logic. Logic or any calculation or anything which we can do it. So if you look at the purpose of calling the server side controller is just because I needed data. That's it. Lightning component needed data. So for that data, I'm calling the server side. Otherwise, I can do all the calculation, everything I can do in the client side. Only the dependency is on the server side is I needed data of the particular object, or I needed data of multiple object. So only that dependency is there on the server side. So server side is nothing but what is exactly stays in the server side. It's kind of any DML or socket or trigger or Apex class. So these in the server side. When it comes to client side, client side, we can implement any generic logic, which I do not need a dependency on the data, or I can implement any functional logic that I can implement. So now we have divided. Before we used to do the logic, functional logic, everything we used to do it here. Now we have divided to use only when I have a DML. Okay. DML of child record. I wanted to update the few fields on that child record, or I wanted to just get the information of grandchild information. Okay. If it is a directly on the parent object, I can get the information. I can do the DML here. I can do the DML here using the LDS. This is on the parent record. If I wanted to do the child record update, then I can use the server side. So now we have divided what logic should go into the Apex side and what logic we can implement in the component client side. Because right now everybody is very smart in writing the code, right? So as we have seen, there is a lot of performance issues and everything. Now everybody is much aware of the Lightning Aura component, and they started using the JavaScript to implement all kind of a logic in the Lightning component. So is this clear backend architecture?
Yeah, as of now, clear.
So now let's understand Apex server side controller. If I'm calling the Apex server side controller from the Lightning component, Lightning Aura, what is the things that I need to take care? Usually what we write in the Apex class, we just declare the access modifier, public class name, and then we can declare the method, and we will write the business logic inside the method. Okay, so is it same for Lightning Aura also? No, it is not the same. So let's follow there is some steps which we have to follow. In case if I'm calling a method from Lightning Aura, then I have to declare a annotation before the method. The annotation is AuraEnabled. So what will happen if I use the AuraEnabled? So AuraEnabled annotation, it will enable access to the controller method. It will enable the access to Lightning controller function or method that we have. So it will automatically enable this. The first thing is that we have to use the annotation @AuraEnabled on top of the method declaration. Now, method must be static. It should be static, and the access modifier we have to use public or global. We cannot use a private if I'm calling that method from the Aura. Access modifier always has to be public or global. And it has to be static method. Non-static methods are not supported. Now, the third point is, if method returns any value or an object or an instance of or list or set or array, any collection, whatever, if a method returns an object, instance method that retrieve the value of the object instance field must be public. So if I'm declaring a collection or if I'm declaring a map, if that is the value return type is, if I'm returning the value map, then we have to make sure the declaration of this map should be public. So return value should be public. If I declare the variable as a private, for example, let's assume that method is returning the Boolean value, true or false. If I declare the variable private and I'll use the return Boolean. So if I'm declaring like this, and if at the end of the method I'm returning this value, it does not work. It has to be declared as a public. And the fourth and final one is unique name. Every method name has to be unique for client side and server side actions. Okay. If I have a method already declared with that name, do not use the same name here. It can be function name or it can be controller name, Apex controller name. Anything, the method, if we are declaring it, it has to be unique name. So this is Apex side, Apex server side controller. So let's go ahead and create one Apex side controller. Let's open developer console, file new Apex class. So this is my Apex class, CL1404. And this is for, let's pass the account records to the Lightning component. So I'll use it as a retrieve account data. Or simply I'll write retrieve data. Okay, this is my class. My access modifier is public class and I have a class name. Now I'm going to declare a method public and static, and my return value should be account, and my method name is, let's give account data. Okay, this is my method. So the plan is this method I wanted to call in the Lightning Aura component. So if I have to call this, I need to enable this method. In order to enable this method, I'll be using the AuraEnabled annotation. Now, inside this method, the business logic is, let's pull one of the account record. Select ID, name, phone, industry, rating, email item. Okay, rating from account. For now, let's pull only one record. Okay. Now let's return this account to the Lightning Aura. This is my method which I have enabled for Lightning Aura by using the annotation @AuraEnabled. What is my logic here? I'm pulling the account record, one of the account record, and passing that values to the Lightning Aura. So account is a standard object that I'm returning here. It's not a private. And everywhere my method and class name is public. Okay, now how to call the Apex side controller in client side. How to call the server side controller in the Apex side controller. What are the steps that I need to follow in order to call my Apex method or my Apex class? Okay. The first thing is I need to initialize my class name, Apex class name in Lightning component. This is my first step. I have to initialize the Apex class name in the Lightning component. When I say Lightning component in HTML. In bundle, if you look at the bundle, the first one is, this is the HTML component. Okay, and then second, call the method. Once I call the method, I have to pass the parameters. Okay. It can be while calling the method, I can pass the parameters, but let's go step by step. Call the method in one line, and then in next line, I'll pass the parameters. Once I pass the parameters, I have to invoke the callback function. Invoke callback function. Once I invoke is done, then I'll get the return value from the Apex class. And then final step is A.enqueAction. So A.enqueAction at the end is recommended to use every time. So what is that means is all the actions that are enqueued. So whatever happened, let's see how it is going to enqueue, will run at the end of the loop. So the first thing in the client side, I'll initialize the component name, Apex class name. Then I'll call the method, pass the parameter, invoke callback function, returns the value, and in A.enqueAction. So 6 steps in the client side. How to call the method is Component.get. Okay. How to pass the parameter? Set parameters. We use a keyword called setParams. setParams is the keyword. So for passing the parameter, we use setParams. For the callback, we use setCallback. For the values, return values, get return values. And finally, we have a enqueAction, which is a standard key $A dot enqueAction. Okay, so these are the some keywords while writing the logic in the Lightning controller. We use it. In order to call the method, I use Component.get. For passing the parameters, setParams is the keyword. For callback, setCallback. For return values, getReturnValue. And at the end, $A dot enqueAction. Okay. Now let's go ahead and see. Let's create a one component. Let's use all of these keywords there. So the component name is server side. Call server side. Click on submit. As usual, let's create a attributes. Aura colon attribute. Okay. Now I'm going to use the name account ACC and my type is account. Okay. Now I'm not declaring the default here because the plan is to get the records. I'm not going to load this. The first thing is that I wanted to call the server side controller. Okay. So as soon as my component is loaded, I wanted to call the server side. That means on load of the component, I wanted to call server side. So on loading of the component, we use Aura handler, which is called as a Aura handler. Aura handler is used to, like, whenever the component is loading or whenever the child component is loading. On load of the component, I wanted to initialize some, I wanted to execute some logic, or I wanted to initialize a couple of things. So we use Aura handler. By default, we will give the name as init. And the value is, we always use the value as this. That is a default for handler. So till this point is standard. Aura handler, name init, value this. So on load of this component, I wanted to call the server side. In order to call the server side, I'll do some standard action, which is a standard events that are going to happen here. So action handle controller. Okay, this is a standard event. Onload event is a standard event. On loading of the component, I wanted to call the Lightning controller and execute some logic there. Okay. I'll go to the controller. Let's copy this. Go to the controller. Replace the same function name. I'll not be using helper. Let's use the helper otherwise. Okay, let's use the helper. Now, so as soon as I click on this, Okay, as soon as this component is loaded, automatically this action will be called. Okay. On this function, the logic that I wanted to do is I want to call helper method here. Call the helper method. Okay. For now, I do not have any logic. I just wanted to call the helper method here. Let's go to helper. Helper. Let's use controller method. Okay. And the functions I need component, comma, event. Okay. So here the first step is let's copy these steps. Okay. The first one is initialize the Apex class. Okay, initializing the Apex class will be in HTML. So let's take out this. Where I'll be initializing it? Here. How will I initialize it? The keyword is controller equal to my Apex class name. Now I have initialized the Lightning component. In controller, my first step is call method. This is step 2. This is step 3. This is step 4 and step 5. Okay, the first one is call the method. So how will I call component dot get, and what is my method name here? Give ACC data. So I'll put C dot name. Okay, I have to store this in one variable. Let's store this in the var action. Okay, I'm calling the method. Now the next step is I have to pass the parameters. In order to pass the parameters, this variable name dot, then I have to use this setParam. Okay, this is the way that I'll use it. But right now, my method does not have any parameters. So I'll not pass any parameters because method does not have any parameters. It is just giving me the result of account. There is no parameters here. We will see later how to pass the parameter. Now the next step is invoke callback function. How to invoke callback function? Action dot set callback. Okay. So in set callback, this is very important. So in set callback, this comma my function. This comma function. This is a standard one. This comma function. Inside the function, The parameter is response. Okay. Set callback this comma function the response. Now I'm invoking the callback function. Inside this, I wanted to identify what is my response from the server side. Okay. In order to get that, first let's understand whether it is a successful or failure. So I'll take state equal to response dot get state, so that I'll understand what is my status here. State equal to success or failure. If my state equal to success, what I wanted to do, or else what I wanted to do. Okay, we have a different state, success, error, different are there. So right now let's see if it is a successful response. Then I'll store my response into the one variable which is called as a res. Response dot get return value.
Spelling mistake, function spelling mistake. Content line.
What is that, Koti? I did not get you. What is that? Tenth line it's saying.
In 10th line, the function name is typo mistake.
Okay. Okay. So now this is the step 4. I'm returning the value. What are the values that I'm getting it? I'm storing into the response. Now this response value I wanted to store into the ACC attribute. If it is a successful response, then I wanted to set v.acc, res. Okay. Step 1, call method Component.get. I'm calling my method. Right now, I do not have any parameters, so I'm not passing any parameters. Invoke callback function. So set callback action dot set callback, and the standard the line is this comma function response. Inside this response, based on the state, whether it is a successful or failure, I'm going to get the value. In order to get the value, I have to use the get return value. So once I have the value, then I can store it into the ACC. Now, step 5. Step 5 is enqueAction. So I have to use $a.enqueAction. And inside this enqueAction, I have to pass my variable. So whatever I declared here, from the time I call the method, whatever it is happens, only it will execute when I write it into the enqueAction. In case if I comment it out, I'll not get the response. Though it will execute all of this, but it will not return the value to the Aura. So enqueAction at the end is very important. Okay. So now let me call this helper method in the controller. In order to call the helper method, I have to just a second. I have another call. Let's find the quickly. Helper dot my helper method name, and the expected parameters are component comma event. So this is component comma event. Now, in order to see whether the values are coming or not, I'll just print the values in the lightning card. So title equal to account information. And I'll print b dot acc dot. Let me print name, phone, industry, name. Phone. Industry. Okay. Now let's use this component in my application. Okay, update preview. Why I did not get it. Okay. So what I'm printing there. account name, phone industry. There is the phone industry. Console.log. Get account. I'm getting the null values. Why? Okay. So this is the set callback, and this is the action I'm calling it. Let's debug. Okay. Response is success. And I have the values. Okay. Why? A.enqueAction. So let me refresh this. Right, case sensitive. Okay, so we have to use the exact API field names. Okay, so it is displaying the name, phone number, and industry. Clear?
Yeah, clear.
So what we are doing it here is I'm doing the onload event. I'm calling it handler event. And the standard keyword is name init. We always use init, and this is the this. So I'm calling the lightning controller. From the lightning controller, I'm calling the helper. So in the helper, in order to call the Apex side controller, server side controller, the first thing is that I need to call the method. Once I call the method, we have to initialize a variable, because further we are going to use this variable. So once I initialize that variable, then I have to pass the parameters using that particular variable name dot setParams. So right now we are not using any parameters, so I am not passing anything. Then I have to invoke a callback function. So this variable name dot setCallback. In the setCallback, the standard keyword is this comma function response. So inside that I have to open the block. Then I have to first understand what is my state, whether it is successful or error. So if it is a successful, then I'm going to capture this particular response of the return value. So the keyword is getReturnValue. And then that particular, whatever I have stored into the variable, then take that variable and set it into the Lightning Aura attribute. Then at the end, we have to use the A.enqueAction. So if you do not write the A.enqueAction, it will not return anything. So the process will not be there. Okay, that's all for today. The homework is, if you remember, we have implemented a card, header card. So go to the accounts. Open any record. Now, whatever this top header is there, okay, implement this. And as soon as this component loads it, it should display the name of the account. And there should be icon here. And it should load the type, phone number, website, account owner. So as soon as my component is loaded, then it has to display the values by taking the data from server side and display it on the component. So this is the assignment. Okay.
Okay. So that is the only one card, right?
Only one.